Good morning, everyone. I am Yesid Moreno, a member of the Robotic Rehabilitation Laboratory at the School of Engineering in San Carlos, University of São Paulo. Today, I am here to present a preliminary study that aims to assess human-robot interaction during inflation and extension movements in various robot system configurations, resistive and assistive. Among all the joints in the human body, the knee is the most extensive and complex. This structure plays an essential role in optimizing lower limb performance. It is crucial for the execution of fundamental activities such as jumping, walking, and maintaining a correct posture. The effective restoration of the knee functionality is vital in improving the quality of life for individuals with limitations in this joint. One of the therapeutic movements frequently employed in knee rehabilitation is flexion and extension. This therapeutic approach is useful for muscle strengthening, motor coordination enhancement, and increasing the joint range of motion. Within a rehabilitation session, the therapist often employs movement antagonistic to those of the patient, applying resisting force to promote muscle strengthening. However, over the standard session, the therapist may experience fatigue, requiring rest periods, which can limit the availability for the other sessions. Thanks to the incorporation of the new robotic assistance, rehabilitation helps mitigate the therapist's excessive physical effort, offering the ability to perform consistent and precise movements throughout the session. With this new technology, the data collection through sensors play a crucial role, providing a detailed history of the exercises performed. This important information increases the analysis of the therapeutic progress over sessions, allowing for a more accurate prognosis regarding therapy's evolution. However, when considering the use of robots in rehabilitation, it is imperative to highlight the importance of interaction between patient and the robot. During the movements executed by the robot, it is important to ensure the welfare of the patient and safe operation, avoiding the destruction of these components. In conclusion, the success of therapy sessions depends on a comprehensive evaluation of the human-robot interaction before implementing assistive robotic therapy. Considering these difficulties, the objective in this study was to evaluate the human-robot interaction during repetitive knee flexion and extension movements. To measure this interaction, several tests were developed on a person wearing an exoskeleton with an active joint, using different robot configurations, including resistive and assistive modes. This assessment involved the measurement of the myoelectric activity, muscular behavior, the robot applied torque, and a potential change during the movement. The ExoTau is a lower limb rehabilitation exoskeleton developed in our laboratory. It is composed of adaptive joints placed around the hips and knees, with 6 elastic actuators. They were attached to the user using Velcro straps and also employed a customized shoe. To measure the information, wireless myoelectric sensor from Delsys Drino Avanti and inertial sensor from Xsense MTW Awinda were employed. The entire system was controlled by ReRob app, a framework to enable more efficient integration of robotic rehabilitation devices. The tests were applied on a healthy 30 years old male person with around 65 kilograms and 175 centimeters height. He wore an active joint from the ExoTau on his right knee during the sessions, seated in upright posture, made extension and flexion movements, followed the sinusoidal trajectories, and was displayed on a screen in front of him, as illustrated in this figure. This study was approved by the Ethics Committee of the University of São Paulo, School of Physical Education and Sport of Ribeirão Preto. The impedance control law is what approach was employed, where theta d represented the decided position and theta represented the current position. QB and BB were the parameters representing the spring constant and virtual damping coefficient, respectively. The internal force control were responsible for computing the deciding motor velocity, as configured by the EBOS controllers. In this context, human dynamics was considered as a disturbance in robotic system. Throughout this approach, we could adjust the robot response to human actions in a way that ensures safe and controlled interaction, maintaining the system integrity during the test executions. Following the surface electromyography for the non-invasive assessment of muscle protocol, we placed the electrodes on the rectus femoris, vastus lateralis, and vastus medialis muscles for knee flexion movements, and of the semitendinous and biceps femoris muscles for knee extension movements. The experiments were conducted in 4 distinct configurations. In the first one, named BEAR, the individual performed movements following a path presented on the screen, without using the robot. In the 3 subsequent experiments, the individual utilized the robot, which provided assistance during knee flexion, knee extension, and full knee range of motion movements, respectively. This figure illustrates the trajectories performed by the subjects in different exoskeleton assisting modes. Each line of the graph corresponds to a specific assisting mode. The red line represents BEAR mode, the green line flexion assisted, the magenta extension assisted, the black completely assisted, and finally the blue line represents the decided trajectory. The shaded regions around each line are the deviation observed throughout the entire section. During BEAR mode, we observe that in the extension phase, the movement deviates from the reference trajectory. This is because the subject started with a partially flexing knee, leading to higher velocity during this phase. However, during the flexion phase, the knee's angular velocity was lower, resulting in the movement ending in a semi-flexing position. This figure shows the tracking error relative to the reference trajectory in different exoskeleton assisting modes. This error quantified how currently the subject followed the reference trajectory. In the flexion assisting mode, tracking error for the extension phase were reduced. However, they increased during the flexion phase. In this case, it was apparent that the user exerted a flexion velocity greater than necessary, indicating effort and underutilization of the robot assistance. During the completely assisting mode, the results were similar to BEAR mode, but with improved trajectory tracking, especially during the flexion phase. By observing the figure, we can see that in the case of completely assisted, the tracking error remained closest to 0 over time. This is expected since, in this mode, the user didn't encounter resistance to their movement. However, even in this mode, tracking error suggested that the user did not fully capitalize on the robot assistance, occasionally applying more force than required to align with reference trajectory. In summary, this finding highlighted the subject interaction with the exoskeleton in different modes, shedding light on how a system level impacted movement trajectories and the extent to which user optimized the assistance provided. With regard to the torques applied by the exoskeleton over time, anti-root mean square values across the 3 different configurations, we can annotate the following. During the flexion assisting mode, the torque profile exhibited an interesting pattern. Initially, the torque was at 0 because the movement started with the knee in a flexed position. However, as the subject initiated extension, the exoskeleton gradually increased and applied torque to help restore the knee to a more extended position. Once on the maximum extension was reached and the flexion phase began, the exoskeleton reduced the applied torque until it almost reached 0 at the end of the cycle. In the extension assisting mode, we observe a torque curve with shape similar to flexion assisting mode. However, in this case, the torque applied to the exoskeleton initially exceeds zero because the knee started in flexed position. As the user extended his knee, the exoskeleton decreased the applied torque to nearly zero upon reaching maximum extension. Subsequently, during flexion, the exoskeleton applied torque to help restore the extended position. At this point, the user perceived this torque as resistance to his movements. In the completely assisted mode, the exoskeleton applied minimal torque, primarily aiming to correct reference tracking errors. Now, shifting our attention to the RMS figure, we could identify some key trends. The highest value was associated with the assisting extension, while the lowest value corresponded to fully assisting movements. The higher torque values related to the flexion and extension assisted modes could be attributed to the resistance imposed by the exoskeleton in these modes. In relation to the muscle activation, it was normalized using a percentage of maximum voluntary contraction, MVC, in bear mode. When we compared the activation of the flexor and extensor, an interesting observation emerged. In bear mode, which represented a natural state without exoskeleton, the flexor exhibited lower activation levels. This was due to the assistance provided by the gravity during flexions, as opposed to extension where gravity acted as a resistance. Focusing on the flexion assisting mode, we notice significant difference both the biceps femoris and the semitendinous show a higher activation levels compared to the bear mode. This was because during the flexion phase, there was greater angular acceleration without resistance encountered. Additionally, in flexion assisted mode, there was a shift in the muscle recruitment pattern, where the biceps femoris was more active than the semitendinous. Now, in the extension assisted mode, where the robot assisted in extension and resisted flexions, we saw a different pattern. Both the biceps femoris and the semitendinous exhibited decreased activation compared to the bear mode. This could be attributed to the assistance provided during extensions, as well as peak acceleration during this phase. However, the recruitment pattern with the semitendinous was more active than the biceps femoris, remained consistent just as the bear mode. Finally, in completely assisted mode, we observe a unique pattern. In this mode, the extensor muscles were less active compared to the flexion and extension assisted modes, but more active than the bear mode. Across all modes with the exoskeleton, we notice a deviation from the recruitment pattern seen in the bear mode. With the exoskeleton, the vastus medialis was the most active muscle. In conclusion, the exoskeleton introduced force that might contribute to undecided knee rotation. Finally, we got the following significant conclusions. First, the exoskeleton could lead to change in the pattern of muscle recruitment. Second, our study demonstrated a marked increase in myoelectric activity when individuals interact with the exoskeletons. Third, the robot configuration for flexion and extension assistance were suitable for training programs aimed at strengthening specific muscle groups. Additionally, the complete robot assistant is useful for training programs focused on developing motor control. It is required to conduct the experiment with the other subjects, changing the parameters of the movements and level of assistance resistance of the robot. Additionally, we are considering the implementation of force and torque sensors to enhance our analysis of human-robot interaction behavior. Thank you for your attention.